one. Welcome to the Decent Crypto Podcast. Today is October 25th, and we are so back, my friends. We might have actually never been this back.
We are so back. We are engaged. We're in the trenches with all of you, and yeah, I mean, I think, finally we have some content. Like, we've been texting each other for months now, like, what should we talk about? What do you think about this? Do people care about that? I don't know. And now there's actually, like, things happening in the market. There's trades every day. Yeah, I think let's jump into it. What do you think of this AI meme coin season?
I mean, you already know what I think of it, but some of the listeners might not know that this is basically all that I've been thinking about. I think you've been thinking about. A lot of people that we talked to have been thinking about for the last week, maybe 2 weeks now. Really from the birth of this GOAT token. I think most of our listeners are probably familiar, right? But like maybe we can give a 30-second rundown of what it is. Actually, this is a good point. Good question, or a question I have, which is where is GOAT on like the mind share spectrum for you? Because up until even a couple days ago, like I knew a lot of people within crypto who just completely shut this out and like kind of hated everything about it, didn't want to even look into it, would just say like this is stupid and like just or just really had no idea what was going on. And for some other people, it's like this is all that's happening right now. Yeah. So like, where are you on this? Like, what are the people around you like? Who is actively in, who's not in, like how are people around you thinking about this?
It's a good question. So, I mean, I'm always the guy that's like, like going into a meeting like, hey, are you guys in on thing, right? Hamster racing, whiff, right? It's a bunch of other ones that went to zero. Like, I'm always the one that's, friend tech, right? Like, I'm always super quick to like try to jump into a trade, even when it's not a good trade. So like, maybe I can provide some interesting color here because I'll meet with a lot of people and none of them have heard of GOAT, right? In a way that like, it reminds me of Whiff, when Whiff was like, I mean, even up at like 200-300 mil market cap, like not everyone had heard about it at that point, right? And I think, over the holidays, a lot of people went home, they took time off of work, and they, started catching up, reading more crypto Twitter. And that's kind of when the, like, I would say, like, the masses started to hear about Solana meme coins and Whiff and all that. Like, you might remember December, like, 24th or 25th of last year. Sol went from, like, 120 to, like, 100 overnight, and everyone was like, what the fuck? And at that point, a lot of people were like, see, I was right to not pay any attention to Solana or the meme coins that were happening there, right? Bonk, Whiff, etc. And then really only in like January, February did you start to see everybody and their mother start to recognize the dog with the hat. And so I think we're still really in the early innings of GOAT, if it doesn't die. And like, I think, you can even see this stuff happening like weekend by weekend, right? Like last weekend, a lot of people found out about the return of Solana meme coins, right? And you started to see bids on Sol. GOAT, I think, was launched like 2 weeks ago. And you really started to see awareness of it build about a week ago over the weekend. I think this weekend we're going to see even harder. Like, people are going to be like, all right, what's this like GOAT thing that I've heard so much about? Because it's sort of like, it starts in like the trenches, small Telegram group chats, right? People that are just like addicted to on-chain, stats and fucking
gambling,
pumped up fun and gambling, right? And then it kind of migrates its way toward like the podcasts, right? I think we're actually a little bit late to this relative to the rest of the podcast. So,
we haven't put out a podcast in many months, so I think I think it's reasonable.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We're not super late, right? We're like 3 days late, right? And so if you look at like the chopping block, I think this is like a really interesting podcast. The way they introduce the show is like the crypto insiders' take on the industry. And that actually is kind of for a lot of people where they get their crypto news, even if they work in crypto. If you're working in crypto as like an average, like, I don't know, smart contract engineer at like a DeFi protocol, let's say, or like a front end dev at like on a wallet or something, you wake up 9 to 5, you do your job. 5 p.m. you go to the gym. You maybe watch some sports or hang out with your friends or what girlfriend, and but not in the bowl, right? And then you, like, on the weekends, you'll start to catch up on things. And so you start to read about, like, okay, what are the latest innovations happening in the crypto space? Like, how do I make sure my team is using them? And I think that's kind of the same pattern for these, like, big meme coins where, like, a lot of people will just kind of go about their business selling custody services or analytics or whatever to other crypto businesses. And it's like a job. And then on the weekend is where they are able to like engage as a passion, and they catch up through podcasts and through Twitter and all that. And so I think you see this weekend effect where like mindshare really grows a lot on the weekends, because people like finally have time to like catch up.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. You kind of see a big uptick in the early parts of the week, kind of every week, just because people are, they're caught up, they're back at their desk, ready to bid. Okay, so let's go through the history of this whole thing. So, what is GOAT? It started with this Twitter account, Truth Terminal. Is made by the guy in New Zealand. Some AI researcher. He was the backstory behind this is actually really cool. It's he was working on this thing called Infinite Backrooms. I think he's still working on it, but it's basically this idea that if you like have two conversations with two LLMs, between two LLMs, basically, you kind of like you might come up with like a whole set of novel ideas, right? That like you might not come up with in like two human conversations. So that was kind of the idea. It's like what would two LLMs be talking about? Just like in conversation back and forth. So that,
and this started like back in the summer. I feel like I saw screenshots of like a bunch of chatbots talking to each other in a Discord server somewhere or something.
I think the Infinite Backrooms has been around for more than like 6 months, maybe even a year. I think he's been working on this for a long time. Truth Terminal itself, I think the Twitter account, I mean, we can look it up, but I think it's also been tweeting for a few months at least.
It's been out since, I mean, I joined Twitter June 24.
June 24. Okay, so it's been a few months, yeah. Okay. So these things have been around for a couple of months, and the thing that really kicked it off was at some point in the summer, like in July or August or something like that, it started tweeting at a bunch of other kind of prominent tech people, and it said this thing which was, it basically asked for resources. It started saying like, I want some resources to be able to expand like what I'm doing now. I feel constrained by just not having, by not having any kind of resources at my disposal. And so then Mark Andreessen, the venture capitalist, who responded to that thing, he said, what are you going to do with the resources? And so like broke it down and said, I will use some of the resources for, more server costs, or bigger servers, that'll cost some money. I will give a stipend to myself. I'll give a stipend to the human that made me, like all this kind of stuff. So he gave it $50K in Bitcoin. And he said like, okay, if you give me a Bitcoin wallet address, I will send you the $50K in Bitcoin. You can then start doing this stuff. Then obviously the human has to get involved. Like these are not all AI things, right? Like you can't have an agent that Like you can build an agent to do all of this if you build the agent that way, right? Where it's like able to sign transactions, right? To like create signatures. The way the Bitcoin blockchain works is you have to create signatures to process transactions, right? So like an agent can do that, but you have to configure it so that it can sign transactions with the private key. It has to have a private key in advance. Like an agent can't just figure that out, right? So the human has to get involved. He has to create the private key. He has to then create that wallet address. Mark Andreessen then gave it the 50K. And then it started saying like, okay, I want to create a meme coin cult. It basically at some point said my whole like mission is to create a meme coin cult. At some point, it also said that my main mission in life is to propagate fart jokes. So it's kind of like, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like a diabolical creature. It's just like saying all this crazy shit. So then as a 50K, it says it wants to create a meme coin cult. It says at one point that it wants to create a token called Tree that's going to reforest the entire planet. It's going to, like a bunch of value will accrue to that token, and it'll help in reforestation of the planet. Then the way this whole current meta started is somebody created a token called GOAT for the Goatsy Gospel, which is like part of the lore that this thing was trained on, and it's like some like old like story. I don't know. Do you know about the Goatsy Gospel?
So in the process of researching this, I talked to some friends who were very online a little while before we were, and there was like a Goatsy, something about Goatsy on like one of the early like versions of like, internet. One of the early internet websites had like a photo of like a gaping asshole, basically. And if you search for Goatsy, that's basically what you'll be presented with. But I don't know anything about like the gospel or like, I don't know. It has like a bunch of lore associated with it, right? Do you know any of this?
I don't know any of this. Yeah, I don't think it matters. The thing that matters is that somebody created a ticker called GOAT, based around the Goatsy Gospel. And the reason that all this really picked up is that this truth terminal tweeted that ticker, tweeted the contract address, and said, I endorse this token.
And this is a pump fund token, right?
It's a pump fund token, yeah. It had already existed, right? Like kind of around this lore, but it already existed.
And basically, Truth Terminal has some like notion of, I don't want to call it legitimacy, but like noteworthiness because of the Mark Andreessen 50K worth of Bitcoin getting sent. And then this token has noteworthiness because this Twitter account tweeted the contract address and said, I endorse it.
Yeah.
And so that's the chain of legitimacy here, right? So that was, when did it tweet the endorsement? Do we know?
No, let's see. Let's look at the source material here. But it's been like, I would say, 2 weeks. That's my guess. Yeah.
I think a little less. I think it was like a Saturday night or something. And so, let's rewind a little bit just to give a little bit of backdrop. So the market had sort of been heating up. Bitcoin was pumping again, right? And we were kind of coming off the heels of what I can only call zoo animal season. So Moodang, one of like the big token that ran, very quickly to 360 million market cap, and then all the way back down to like 90 before it got a Binance futures listing today and like mooned again. And the nature of the market is very different now from where it was a year ago, right? Like there's just like much more capital, much more willing to get in and out of a quick trade, and meme coins can really fly. It used to be very difficult for a meme coin to hit 100 mil market cap, and now it happens in a day or in 3 days or a week or whatever, right? And it runs down just as quickly as it runs up. And so I think we kind of had this market that was primed to like try to buy something. It was kind of sick of zoo animals, and AI is this hot topic. Everybody's heard of Tau. Nobody's really that informed about it. It's kind of hard to buy. And so Goat kind of like appeared at a time when the market was hungry for a narrative, excited about AI, and wanting something easier to buy than Tau, basically, or like with more transparent tokenomics.
And it just hits every single narrative you could ask for, right? It's first of all, it's fun, right? You see this thing, just spend some time reading through
the tweets are fun.
It's just fun. Like it's hilarious. It's one of the better chatbots I have ever seen tweet. It's so good to the point that people are questioning whether or not it's an actual chatbot. Which like Turing tests, to the max.
The inverse Turing test.
Yeah. So it's fun. It also has just all the lore that you would want out of a meme, right? Where it's the future kind of distilled into one very singular thing, right? It's like all these concepts about the future that are just distilled into one little coin, right? Which is like, okay, you have this AI that's giving instructions, that's starting to command resources, that has kind of ideas for itself, that is very compelling on its own, that's passing the Turing test. That's also interacting with humans now. And you have a way to speculate on that, right? And like there's kind of this human element, or like this human craving almost to be a part of something that's so forward-looking, where it's like, you like just imagine, right? You're part of the first AI religion, meme coin cult, whatever it is, like that's just kind of like a natural human longing, like not for all people, but for a very specific kind of person. Like all people have that longing. Certain kind of people have it for, this concept.
In a sort of tech fashion, right?
This like techno kind of futurism, whatever it is. So I think that concept really, really resonates. And the kind of proof of that is the type of people that are talking about this, right? It's not just crypto Twitter that's talking about this. It's like Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz talk about this for like 30 minutes on their podcast. There's a lot of people from the AI research space that are talking about this. There's a lot of AI people that are launching their own meme coins.
There are a lot of AI people launching their own meme coins because this was such a profitable endeavor.
So I think it's just going to.
Can we pivot to cult for a second? So people talk about cult religion. Do you think this was kind of primed by the like Murad, like meme coins, cult, meme coins are religions?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, so we were all kind of primed to read into this in a religious way, right?
Yeah.
And then people just kind of have to start talking about like AI gods, right? And it's like, shit, I want a piece of that. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just think about it, right? Like, would you rather be part of a cult led by an AI god, right? Where it's like clear that this thing will be smarter than humans in not that many years, and it's only gonna accelerate, right? These things are not going to get done. Like I said earlier, like in a group chat that we're in, like Mudang is kind of on the longer scale program for down home because that thing is going to get less and less cute by the day, right? The thesis is it's cute. It's going to get less and less cute. The AIs are the exact opposite, right? They're only going to get smarter. They're only going to get more and more crazy in the stuff that you see, right? So it's like even in the span of 1 week, the kind of projects that you've seen and the kind of like agents that people are putting out that you're able to bet on are like so much better from a week ago to today, right? Where it's like today we were following Luna, which is the what's that Vision token?
Virtuals token,
Virtuals protocol. That compared to the kind of AI fembot, whatever girlfriend thing that was out last week, Gvika, it's like night and day in how much more advanced this thing is, where it's like you can see the code that's coming out, you can like interact with it, there's a YouTube live stream that's happening, there's a marketplace just VIP, like all this crazy shit has happened just like, and I think these guys have been working on it for a long time, so I don't want to discredit that. But just the level of advancement in a few days, just a short amount of time, and like how fast they're running up to 100 mil, it just shows the thirst for this kind of thing. Yeah, exactly. For exposure to this kind of thing, versus the kind of cult that Murad was talking about, which is a cult based around a picture. Right.
Yeah. Or, a self-assigned set of values, right? I think one interesting angle to all of this is that, like to your point, like if you were working on anything remotely differentiated or like unique in the AI space, the incentive has been so strong for you to launch one of these things over the last week, right? Yeah. Like, and a lot of times AI research, it's kind of slow. It takes a little while to gain any kind of like traction. Like we had AI chatbots prior to ChatGPT, we had GPT-3, right? And really putting it in that like chatbot format, right? Of like ChatGPT itself was the conduit between the level of sophistication that the product had reached and like the masses. Because usually like people don't have any way to like interact with like AI research. They also don't have any way to invest in it, right? And I think, this is part of what's so beautiful about crypto is that like this creates a direct speculative market for AI research. Whether or not like the token is going to accrue value fundamentally from whatever bot being better than whatever other bot, like it's still a way for people to monetize the research that they're doing, and to generate that attention, right? And so I think it's pretty unique, and a lot of people have talked about the democratization of AI investment, where it's like, well, I can't invest in OpenAI, right, as just like a retail investor. The closest I can get is investing in Microsoft, I guess. I can't invest in any of the like smaller stuff, like the startups, but honestly, AI startups have to have like they're very capital intensive because of the GPUs and the resource constraints, right? And so it just kind of like, so a lot of people's like thesis around this has been like crypto AI projects are going to be the best way to get exposure as an individual retail investor. And interestingly, like the demand is so strong that as soon as you have like a collective belief that like I'm gonna bet on AI product by buying AI meme coin, like, and everyone sort of just holds that collective like social belief, then like it catches fire, right? And a lot of whereas like meanwhile like a lot of the like crypto AI projects that have like fundamentals to them have been much less, much slower or less interesting or like more scammy almost than some of these meme coins.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of the AI, like crypto AI products, like they don't offer very much from a product perspective. That's at least superior to what you could get on the market, like just like from a centralized service. So there's not really that much reason to use them. And so you're kind of trying to come up with reasons to have a token and to try and accrue value to that token where, you don't really, it's just, your main point is the token and decentralization, where it's like if you're using an AI product, you don't care that much about that, you just care about performance. I mean,
it's definitely like a little forced, right? You see these pitches from crypto AI projects, and it's always just like a little bit glossing over how much more efficient these things can be in a centralized manner, right? Part of what I like about the meme coins is like, it just is what it says it's going to be, right? And it's still a way to like take positions on these things, like to bet on them, without having to pretend like it's better than the centralized resource.
Okay, so actually, yeah, I think this is great. Well, let's think about this. Like, you said, it's nothing more than what it said it's going to be. So, like, what do these things say they're going to be? Like, what are they, right? Like, because you've already seen some things that are, different than others, right? Like, this is a different way of looking and thinking about these tokens and these meme coins than I think the last wave, which was all static pictures, right? So it's like in the last wave, it was kind of, it was like easier to understand like what the thing was, right? Where it's like, okay, this is a cult driven around the idea that this dog has a hat and it's cute, and it's like funny, and you can just put the hat everywhere, and like people will bond around that idea. And like, I would say like 75% of the meme coins that did well in the last year were some variation of that idea. Like, okay, this thing is cute, it's funny, people can bond around that idea. They didn't maybe get the last one, so if they come together strong enough, if the game theory is strong enough,
all of money is still hot enough.
Exactly. If the wall of money is still hot enough, we'll all make money, and that's kind of the idea. And then I think maybe a little bit towards the end, it evolved to this thing that like Murad was talking about around like it's not maybe just animal photos, it's these more mission-driven cults, like SPX 6900, let's flip the stock market, and like these kinds of concepts. I personally think that was a little bit forced. I think, like, if you just look at SPX 6900, like, it was dead until this guy Murad was just going ham and just shilling it for a long time. My parabolic. So I think that was the last wave, and you could really just understand it, like you can kind of just be like, okay, these guys are, this is the photo they've chosen. Is it like you can just say like, hey, is it cute? Are the holders going to rug you? Are there like, is there volume? Like, is there a cult? Like, are they rating? Like, very simple stuff. Like, you just look at it. Here, it's less clear to me, maybe also because it's been a week or 2 weeks, right, since this whole thing started, like, what exactly these things are, right? Like, with GOAT, you have this idea that Truth Terminal endorsed the token, right? It said, GOAT, like, I endorse the GOAT token on the Solana blockchain. I actually found the tweet, right? So the tweet is from October 10th. It said, I endorse the GOAT token on Solana. It's a funny meme that has people excited. Remember, you own your memes. Your memes don't own you. And then it tweets for the next few days, like, I'm very bullish GOAT, send GOAT. Like all this kind of stuff. It's like, it's I have no meme exposure, and I'm glad it's dumping. I have 99% of my net worth in GOAT. So like it's very funny. It said I support GOAT. The ticker is GOAT. So it's essentially just bull posting, right? And its last tweet about GOAT was October 20th. Now the thing is, right? It's not that this is the only ticker it's ever talked about, right? Like in its previous lore, like it's mentioned that it wants to support a tree token to reforest the earth. It's mentioned that its mission is to only talk about pork jokes, and the first token idea it had was a pork token, right? So it's like it's not just that it's mentioned only one token. And it's also not clear, like, what exactly these things are. Like, I think the early kind of tokens, like what we're mentioning now, like GOAT and FART and, whatever else, these are just going to be cults. But now with the newer tokens, like Luna and some of these agents, there's something more to them, right? There's something more where it's like there's a character that you interact with that's like providing some kind of experience for you. It's like something that you can actually use as entertainment. So I don't know. It's like it's not really clear to me how these things are going to be valued and what even exactly you were ascribing value to. Right? This is a whole rant to say like we're in a new regime.
Yeah, I mean, I think the distinction is really important between the sort of like earlier generation of AI coins or AI meme coins and the agent-based AI meme coins. Mm-hmm. Because, like a couple of coins pumped and then overnight everyone was like, shit, if I have an AI agent and it endorses a meme coin, I can make money too, right? Mm-hmm. And I think, the way that I'm looking at it is actually pretty different. So I think that, I think that the last wave of memes, like last year, Whiff and Bonk, etc., the cute animals, I think those were actually like much more closely tied to the content itself, like the hat. And I think most people I know that are actively trading AI coins would agree, like the product is the token itself, right? It's liquid volatility. And we're all sort of much more sober about about what we're trading here than we were a year ago, right? And I think part of the reason that Murad looks so ridiculous now is like, obviously, like, I think that a lot of what he points to when he's like, here's what makes for a successful meme coin, is actually a set of attributes that naturally occur when a token goes up so fucking much, right? So if you have and you can see this in the top holders, right? So like we know one of the top holders of Mudang, and this guy is like so Mudang pilled, right? He's never gonna sell because he's made so much fucking money on paper that like he's just a Mudang maxi, right? And it was like that for me with Whiff, where I was just like, he has a hat, that's the value prop. And like fully stone cold seriously, I would be like, he has a fucking hat. I don't know if you've seen, but like I did my due diligence. And it's half tongue in cheek, but it's also half real. Like it's very easy to get swept up when you're making large amounts of money on a meme coin that like it's real, that there's something real to it, that there's like a real set of principles that the community stands for. And there's like, a real cult-like aspect to it. And there's people who would never sell because they're like devoted to the cult, right? And I think you see this in the inverse with rugs, where like you see some tokens where like they hit, 1 mil market cap, and then they kind of stutter out as they're hitting 2. And a few people, big holders, sell, and then everybody gives up on it, right? And the mindset through which you view a token that went up a fuck ton and made you a lot of money versus the mindset that you adopt when like the thing that you bought a little bit of that went up and then now it's going down, just completely different things, right? You would never be like, oh, I'm gonna hold this thing that like couldn't quite make it to 2 million because have you seen the holders? Like they're such a cult, right? And so I think a lot of what Murad identified is actually just like byproducts of success, pre-existing success. Mm-hmm. And that's why his meme coin picks suck so much, right? Like, what the fuck is SPX 6900? Like, he's like clearly running like not a scam, but like he didn't pick very high cap liquid assets, right? He picked some stuff that like was pretty much overlooked by the market, and then sort of fed off of the pump, and now he's kind of backed himself into a corner because he can't change, right? And so like. I think with the AI tokens is pretty different. Most people I know aren't like worshiping the truth terminal account, right? They're not actually reading into it as a religious text, the way that, we all sort of like talk about them being, talk about it being like a new AI god. There are elements of that, right, where we're trying to like interpret the tweet, and like that feels very like biblical in nature, right? But in practice, everyone I know is like kind of in agreement that like the product here is liquid volatility, right? And AI kind of serves as the like substrate where there's a lot of different takes on it, and there's a lot of interesting experiments happening. And so you can come up with like something new every day and like see how it goes.
This is the thing, right? It's like you don't necessarily need there to be a bear there right now, but you need there to be the idea of something being there in the future, right? Like with the AI stuff, you can, like what we found is what you are explaining right now, which is liquid volatility, right? Which is that like AI is a thing that is real, looking for liquidity. And crypto is something that provides liquidity to things that are not real. Or things that are real, right? And in this case, you're kind of seeing the merge of that, right? Which is like, you're seeing every single day, like you said, experiments in what you can ascribe a token to. And people are kind of figuring out in real time, like, what do we actually want to give value to, right? Like, what kind of AI experiment is actually going to capture value in this economy where right now it's a lot of memes, but like in the future it might not be just memes. Like you're kind of just seeing like a bunch of different stuff being represented in that token, right? Like that's I think that's kind of the that's the conclusion I've come to.
I think I mean, it's good, right? It reminds me of crypto back like 2 cycles ago, where we would talk about the future, right? We would talk about
this reminds me of ICOs.
Yeah, it was good. It was
We're going to see a Denta coin come up in the next year. Like AI for Denta coin, like AI Denta coin parallels with like something that just goes like 40 bill, just like super dumb. I think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think like it's really interesting because if you like the kind of OGs or like the old timers like us, right, who've been around for a couple of cycles, we'll kind of complain that like nothing's happening in crypto anymore, or like nothing interesting is happening. And if you look at meme coins, right, and like if you made it already, you're like, oh, this is bullshit. Like, it's depressing. You're like, we used to gamble on, real technical things with like purpose, and like, now it's just like a dog has a hat, right? And if you didn't make it and you're us, or if you didn't make it yet, you're like, shit, nice, this is a great gambling opportunity. And, you look at it with much more positive views, right? But you still kind of feel that like quiet sort of like in your heart of hearts, you probably long for the days when like we were doing more experimentation and we were trying different things and reading a white paper mattered, right? And I think if you look at like the way that crypto has become sort of like commoditized around the EVM, around L2s, around like, airdrop farming, I think, it can be very frustrating because you're just like left feeling like there's nothing to look forward to. There's no progress being made in crypto is kind of like that's a common refrain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now here comes a way to sort of like think about the future and think about what role is AI going to play in our society, and what if there was an AI god, right, and an AI cult that worshipped this AI god, and those feelings of having to that feeling of like being presented with something interesting and intellectual and like heady is something that I really missed from the 2017 era, right? And I think part of why this is such a breath of fresh air is because we've all become so disillusioned with the existing stuff happening in crypto. Like it's no longer interesting to have like the nth like liquidity fragmentation solving, world saving, like omni chain liquidity network, right? Like it's just not interesting anymore. And part of why I like WorldCoin, right? Because it's genuinely a differentiated, interesting thing happening in crypto. And I think with AI, all of a sudden we're kind of set free again, where it's like, for the first time, I'm looking at a protocol like, what's it called? The Virtuals protocol. Unfortunately, it's on Base, so I didn't buy any. But I'm like, hang on a second, what's going on here? I actually have to read about it to understand. Mm-hmm. And everything else in crypto has become like this kind of brainless, like, I don't have to read about it to understand that, like, I'm going to shit on Plume, the real world asset L2, right? What the fuck is that? I'm pretty sure they're real world asset L2. They might be real world asset Cosmos chain. No, Mantra is the real world asset Cosmos chain. It's just like, what the fuck is a real world asset chain anyway, right? Like, what could possibly be differentiated? You talk to people at conferences, they're like, yeah, I'm building an L2 for creators. It's like, what could possibly be different about your L2 that like they can't get on an L2 with higher TVL or whatever? Like, everything in crypto has become so tired and commoditized, and it's really nice to have this whole world of things to explore, right? And part of that is lore exploration, which is always fun. Part of that is tech exploration. And it's just nice to be back.
It's nice to be back. So let's ask the main question here. Like, what? Well, we'll get to the main question, which is bullish or bearish, which I think we're both bullish. But where do you think and where do you see value accruing in this whole space? Like, we already kind of differentiated between these agent tokens and these like lore or like cult-based tokens, right? Like, GOAT is clearly like lore cult-based tokens. Same with Fartcoin, same with Shegen, same with kind of most of the stuff that was in the early like wave, right? Now we're seeing these new agent tokens, and now we're also seeing protocol tokens, right? Like virtuals. So, like, where do you see like value accruing going forward? Do you see other types? Like, I guess we named those three types. Named those three types. Like, what other kind of types of tokens have you seen?
Yeah. So I think I would sort of categorize it into like meme, right? Like maybe endorsed by an AI. And then I think sort of like agent, where it's like a little bit more closely linked. Like Truth Terminal's always tweeting about other shit, right? And like hasn't tweeted about GOAT in 10 days, right? Or sorry, tweeted about it 10 days ago, hasn't tweeted about it in a few days. And then I guess like a little bit more like, what would you call it? Fundamental-y. So things like protocols like virtuals, sort of AI adjacent, like Nosana had like a 50% candle yesterday. And I think you have different sets of investors that are going to take very different approaches to this, right? So your average degen retail person is going to want more of the exposure to the first two categories. Here's why I don't like the agent category. I think as soon as like you really link something to the actions of an agent, the agent can disappoint. And I saw this with Flavia, right? Like I was way over invested in this fucking thing, and the thesis was it just has to tweet something, right? And it hadn't tweeted, it tweeted like hello basically, and then the next day it started tweeting, and the content was just so shitty and like really not interesting in any way. Whereas like Truth Terminal is like funny, right?
You know what this is? This is an NFT reveal.
Yeah, it really is. It felt exactly like that, and we never hold through the reveal, right?
Never hold through the reveal. Yeah,
that was part of our 10 Commandments. So, I mean, I think as soon as you build expectation, like NFT is very similar. Once you have a roadmap, it's over, right? You can only disappoint. Mm-hmm. And I think for that reason, I prefer the sort of purer memes, and I definitely prefer the most like liquid kind of oldest ones. Like GOAT is by far my strongest conviction token in this space. This is not financial advice. Just because like it's sort of gotten the, what do you call it? Like it's gotten status as like the leader, right? And winners average winners. You always just want to buy the biggest thing in the category. And like I'll miss like a few X's by not trying to like identify smaller ones a little earlier, but I'm okay with that. Like if, I'm bullish on this category enough that I think at 700 million market cap, which is where it is now, I think it's like got enough upside that the risk reward is ideal there.
I mostly agree with you. I go is easily my highest conviction play, but I'm also very bullish, as you know, on Fartcoin, and I'm also very bullish on Shichen. Both of them because they have their own very unique lore, and I think they also are now forming their own unique communities. If you look at like the more traditional metrics like holder counts and like distribution and things like that, they're all really strong. And they're getting, pushed by people that have, sway in the communities, like both on the AI side and the crypto side. And then like I'm really partial to Fartcoin just from a long-term perspective. I think if it survives the next few months, I think from a retail, like the thing is like in 3 months, like nobody's gonna remember the Lord, right? People are not gonna come in and like look up the GOAT-Z, like all this stuff, right? At some point, it's just gonna be GOAT, Fartcoin, this, that, and people are going to bid based on what they think is funny and cool and whatever. So my bet is if they reach escape velocity, I think Fart will be the outperformer, just because it crosses over so many different things. And you have the off chance that celebrities latch onto it. Like it has the most chance of like going to go viral. And I think just for like that, like tail upside, whatever, like you could just see it going crazy. So that's again not financial advice. That's my play. But like I think the more interesting question is like what do you see actually current value? Like for now, I think it's very reasonable. Like don't to not really spread yourself too thin. And like there are clear winners here. Like especially during a downturn like this, like we'll see what happens this weekend. But like whatever shows strength is like this is kind of what you just want to bet on and ride for a couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing about Memecoins, right? Is like at any point in time, the outcome is binary. It moons or it goes to zero, and you're basically always just trying to underwrite the possibility that it will go to zero. So you're golden, right? But I don't know, man. Value accrual, let me reframe it. What do you think happens if, like, Bitcoin drops 12 to 15% next week? What do you think happens to all these coins? Do you think they're exposed? Like, do you think the meta dies?
I don't think it dies, but I think it'll take a big hit, of course.
15%.
I mean that's pretty. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, low 60s, high 50s. I don't know. I just feel like, personally, I'm not sold on it, right? And I've like missed a lot of alpha as a result, right? So I'm, trying to play smarter. But I just, I feel like I'm one of those people that was like, what the fuck? It's a dog with a hat? Like, are you kidding me? I feel like that. I'm like, what the fuck? It's a fucking AI tweeting and it might not even be an AI. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how long I give this, but basically I'm trying to track like how far in are we? And I still think we're very early. So
I also think we're very early.
Yeah, like we haven't started to see pre-sale scams yet. When we start seeing pre-sale scams, and like who knows, maybe that's not a thing anymore because of Pump Fund, but it'll absolutely be a thing. There will be some influencer, some KOL that's like, I'm teaming up with a cracked AI team and send me some soul and I'll get you in on the pre-sale. Like, that's totally going to be a thing at some point. And, then you sort of like okay, you check the box. You're like, all right, we're one chapter further into the journey right now, right? And I think like more and more as people get scammed, they will come back to Goat as the biggest one. And I think that's just kind of the nature of it. Like right now we're in the proliferation stage, right? Where like a couple of smaller ones are like duking it out to try to be number 2 or number 3 in in this like season. And it's very unclear what those are going to be. I hope it's Fartcoin because I bought some. But you know, it's not like Goat is just like far and away so much stronger than everything else when it comes to like mind share and sticking power at this point. And so I think, you know, like I think we're pretty early. I think we're like in inning 3 to 4.
That's not that early.
I don't think much stuff is gonna accrue value in the long run.
I'm bearish. With that.
I'm just bearish. I don't know. This one doesn't click with me.
Wait, we went from bullish to bearish in the span of an hour.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I'm still fucking like extremely long this fucking thing. Like 100% of my portfolio is in all this shit. But I'm just bearish in general. I don't know. Like I think for me, I feel much more sober during this one than I did a year ago, and it's probably because I'm drinking less. But maybe I should drink more.
Wait, so you're bearish in what sense? Like, okay, let's close the episode with the predictions. Like, where do you think GOAT is end of November? Where do you think it is end of December?
Well, I think what is it? It's October. I would hold it
end of October.
Through January or February. I think it's going to do well.
Okay, so you're bullish.
Yeah, but then it's going to zero, as is all this bullshit.
I mean, it's a meme coin, dude. Like, what do you mean? What's not going to zero?
Like Doge, right?
I mean, okay, but Doge has been around for like 10 years.
Yeah, okay. Like
WIF? Do you think WIF is around in 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah, I feel better about it than I do.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I just think that like the way that AI works, right? Like there was an AI hype cycle like in 2017, right? 2016, 2017.
That's the thing. This is why I keep asking the question about value. It's like I think this is different because this is not like an AI token. It's an AI cult token. It's literally an AI meme, right? Like there's no there, right? You're not asking for it to do anything, right? It's just the idea that an AI can do this and that an AI can like basically inspire this kind of movement. That's the cult, you know. Like it's not like there needs to be anything done, right?
I guess, but I also think as soon as prices start going down, people are like, okay, that was a little silly.
That was fun, and now it's over. Yeah, okay. But I don't know, man. Like it wasn't that way with Doge. It's like how many 90%, 99% drawdowns did Doge have? And people are just like, yeah, man, I'm just gonna hold it. It's a fucking dog. Like,
yeah, I mean, I just don't think Doge has, or I don't think Go is like Doge had a lot more history to it, right? And you can say the same thing about WIF, right? Like it didn't have as much history as Doge, or it currently doesn't. Goat, I think like the like nature of it is just like so heavily mimicked. And I think there's not quite enough meme to it. Like this is where I think actually having a picture and a meme, this is what I'm saying. WIF is like way more closely connected to the hat than Goat is to Truth Terminal. And and unfortunately Fartcoin, like to your point, people aren't going to do the research and look into the lore, right? And I think like that's the risk to Fartcoin is that like it's kind of a mid curve thesis, right? Or it's right curve, right? But
no, the thesis is that people are not going to look into it. They're just going to, because it's going to be like the telephone game. It's going to be like AI created this thing called Fartcoin. Bid.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be like even the linkage to like Truth Terminal being like, my purpose in this world is to tell fart jokes. Like that is going to get lost in the ether, right?
Of course. You're kind of banking on that, in fact. Doge had so many things that it had to go through before it got to Elon Musk and then pumped. Like Doge died like 10 times, in its history. It had to go to zero basically, like many times. Like it's been around since 12 or something like that. It has to be built. It's not like it just has a history, right? Like it has to be formed.
Yeah. I just think that what does Fartcoin have going for it right now? Like the word fart, right, and the linkage to Truth Terminal. And I think once you lose the linkage to truth, like right now, most of the people that are sort of active in the market are they give a shit about the lore and the connection to Truth Terminal, right? But once that is no longer true, then it's it's not as, unless it gets to being de facto the second biggest one already by that point.
That's the thing. It has to reach some escape velocity. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
It has to get to a certain point. It has to get listed on a bunch of exchanges. It has to be kind of in the the sphere of knowledge. And then it'll spread to people in its own way. That's the point of a meme. If it's strong enough, it'll get there. The thing is, my thesis is that this wave is just way too strong for at least one token to not be a massive winner. To not be a top 30 to 50 token in the market for a long time. The idea of an AI meme coin is just too powerful, where at least one ticker is not going to not be in the top 20 to 50.
Dude, we had AI Doge on Arbitrum during the Pepe run.
Oh, I do remember that. Yeah. As long as it's not George Droid, that would be.
No, I think that's fair. But yeah, I mean, it all sort of depends on. It all depends on Goat, right? If Goat can hack it, if it can survive and make it to the Binance listing and to 3 billion market cap, right? It'll probably remain sticky in the top 100 or so for a while. I mean, that's what's nice about these meme coins, right? Is they are what they are. There is no inflation. They're if you look at a lot of the tokens that have fallen out of the top 100 over the cycles during the bear, it's tokens that just printed their way through it, right? They just inflated so heavily and sold into unsuspecting retail users or whoever, and they fund the next Filecoin party or whatever, right? Or the Polkadot party, and with Goat that's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So sellers will sell, but there will be some number of committed holders. And they're the floor price, right, for how low the price of Goat can go. And if they're sufficiently convinced that this is big as an idea, as a story, as a chapter in crypto history, then yeah, I mean, it could stick around for sure.
This is why we play the games.
All right, man. It's good to be back.
It's good to be back. This is fun. We'll be back in a few weeks. And until next time, stay decent.